is print different from electronic?
Today, people try and the entire story can be done just by Google searches.
There are issues to do with quality of journalism.
Whereas with an RTI, you've got to put your thought together, you've got to ask the right questions so that you get the right data.
But it's a very special case here. It was becoming into Arnav versus other channels, you know.
Hello everyone. Today we are back with another edition and another episode of The Churn. Today we'll be in conversation with two stellar journalists, R. Jagannathan sir and Uday Mahurkar sir. Both of them combined have served, I guess, more than 6 decades in journalism. R. Jagannathan today heads the editorial team at Swarajya. Uday Mahurkar ji has been appointed as the Information Commissioner of India. Very recently, he has worked with the India Today group for the longest time that one can remember, and all his stories have been very positive stories tracing the development journey of India for a long, long time. R. Jagannathan sir has served on economic beats for a very long time. Both of these gentlemen have been out there on social media and mainstream media, really taking the mantle forward for a very development-oriented, forward-looking narratives, thought processes. And it's a pleasure for me and a great honor to not just invite both of you here, sir, but to be able to hear all your experiences in the media, and hopefully we'll be able to do a detailed job at that. Welcome both of you to The Churn.
Thank you, Subrasta.
Thank you. Thank you, Subrasta.
Jaggi sir, let me begin with you. You've really traveled a great deal in terms of your journalistic career. And there is a charge often applied on the media that it's a highly divided society. And do you agree with that charge? Is it as polarized as it is made out to be on social media? Do editors actually, at the end of the day, sit together and decide what narrative they have to follow for the coming week or that particular day? Does it happen like that?
Well, I think till around 10-15 years ago, it seemed like a non-polarized media. That's largely because I think media was in bed with the government wherever it was. I mean, it was actually there for a long time. I mean, as long as there's only print and TV, the link between government and media was very strong. And therefore, seemed like a consensus. It was only when new media platforms came in that people started hearing alternate voices, which were of a quite different from the official consensus that the powers that be actually manufactured between themselves. Okay, this started changing actually towards the end of the 90s, and once the internet age started picking up, and then the digital age started more thing. So I think then suddenly people realized that this consensus was a false consensus created by two people, both powerful media and powerful politics together, and it gave a false impression of consensus which never was there. The rest of them didn't have a voice. Now that new voices are being heard, now we are talking about a polarization. Earlier, the polarization was actually, I would say, suppressed because people didn't have a voice. Now that people have a voice, they're speaking out, and suddenly the old media is feeling threatened that they are no longer the intermediaries between the powers that be and the people. So disintermediation has taken place in all kinds of industries. It's happened now in media. So people no longer need the journalist to play the middleman between the powers that be and the people. So I think that's what has happened.
Udayji, in your experience as a journalist and now with your new role, how do you see this divide that exists in media today? I ask this question also because now as the Information Commissioner, you'll have an extra responsibility with you, a quasi-government responsibility to actually ensure that the narratives are balanced. So please explain to us this whole charge that the media is biased and the media by and large is a very divided house. How do you see this charge? Does this charge apply in today's day and age also, when ordinary citizens, even on social media or generally also in drawing room conversations, can literally slot media houses into categories and say this is pro-BJP and that's anti-BJP? So where do you think media actually faltered?
Let me clarify one thing, that my role is very different. It is about RTI. So it's not about I don't have a role in, you know, I have no connection to the media as such. My post, the new post which I have got, is the post of some kind of judge, you know, and I have to decide on RTI applications, you know, when they are turned down by the government, and no, you know, the government agencies don't reply to a particular application, then they come in appeal to me. So that is my role, you know. But I largely agree with Jagannathan ji on what he has said, but I think it's a natural corollary. You see, I'll be more upfront on this. The narrative of the right has developed over the last, I think, 6, 7, 8 years or 10 years at the most. You know. And with the growth of social media platforms, you know, I mean, there is more voice for those who, you know, who found their voices suppressed. So I very largely agree with him on that. It's a natural corollary, you know. I mean, people think that since there is certain government is in power, you know, and therefore supporters of those government are asserting their, they're asserting themselves. I don't look at it that way. I look at it this way, that this voice was suppressed all these years, and now it has found a platform. And so, actually, what was actually the minority narrative had become a majority narrative because of the circumstances earlier. The narrative appeared as a majority narrative, which it was not. Because those who were on the right, they did not have a platform. Now they have platforms, you know, with the growth of social media, many other platforms, you know. So you feel that there is a polarization, but it was already there in the sense that there was left and the right. But the right did not have the space. Now it has got the space, you know. And I would go a step further than what Jagannathan has said. I would say that the right narrative was the majority narrative when earlier, but it did not have a platform. And so what was a minority narrative appeared to be the main narrative, you know. So it's a complex situation in that sense to comprehend. Yeah.
So both of you have worked in the print media as well, and digital, and India Today Group has an electronic side to it as well. Please explain to us, the viewers, how is print different from electronic? Not only in terms of the, you know, the visual medium and all that, in terms of the editorial decision that an electronic media takes. How is it different than how a print, editorial staff would react to news? Please explain that to us.
That for me,
I think it is very, very different.
Sorry.
You carry on.
No, carry on. You're.
I think it is very, very different, you know, because you see, the electronic media is driven by a culture called TRP, which is very bad for the country, you know. X channel is running a story which is wrong, but which is getting it more TRP, you know. So other channels try to follow it. So that's a very bad thing actually. So in print, it is not so. In print, there are biases in print also, but then print, you have time to take decision. There is no pressure of TRP. And in good publications, there is certainly a debate also before a certain line is taken. So there is a lot of difference, you know. In print, you can analyze, you know, the stories which you get to see on electronic media. Don't give you a learning experience. Learning experience comes through the print media only. So there is a large difference. Yeah, Jagannath.
Sir, you wanted to add something, Jaggi sir.
Yeah. Basically, I think the difference in the medium is basically the print. There is a gap between the time you think of a news and the time you publish it. So you have a process that you can follow. If you want to, that is, you can of course be crooked and do the wrong stories even in print. But the difference is, if you want to be reasonably honest, you have the time to do it. So you can do it. In the case of TV, it's instant, it's in your face. So when you ask somebody something and you can react to it immediately. So your emotions come out immediately and your thought process comes after a lag. typically human beings react first with emotion, and they need that space so that they can react rationally to something. But this is not what happens in TV, because in TV, suppose I say, hey, Subrata, you're a fool, then immediately you will say, you are a bloody fool. That's what you will say. Even though on consideration, you may say, sir, if you think so, I am happy to think that, or something like that. You might say if you had the time. But in TV, it doesn't happen like that, because it immediately catches your emotion by the gut. And before you know, you have said something that you didn't want to say. So that's the problem with TV. And sometimes it helps TRPs, as Udayji said. But the fact is, because it's an instant medium, you need many, many more trained things. In fact, today the best TV medium are actually state media. If you look at Doordarshan and Rajya Sabha TV and all, you find very rational and very deep discussions.
Absolutely, I fully agree.
But you don't see that in any channel. Even, let's say, the channels that are less noise, they don't have any discussions, because there the problem is the anchor steers the direction in one way. There is no equality in the way discussions are done, but at least they talk a little bit. But the real deep discussions are all in state media, which we keep saying that they are government controlled, but they actually genuinely discuss core issues much better.
Right.
No, my experience, Subrata, is that in terms of actual developmental stories, I think Doordarshan sometimes does very well, I mean, here it is Sushant Singh driven, There it's very rational, I mean, I would like to know what the government is doing, and this government is doing many things at the same time, You don't get the news from other channels, most of other channels. So this TRP driven media is sometimes a threat, in one sense, because Gram Swaraj, app, for example. I have not seen any story on Gram Swaraj app so far. It's a very important app. A person sitting here can find out in his village as to what kind of developmental work has been done, how much money has been spent. One of my helpmates here, 2 years ago, he went to the, he got the details of his village from the Gram Swaraj app, and it showed that on one particular small canal, the Gram Panchayat had spent 6 lakhs, and he told me that, sir, this cannot be more than 2 lakhs. They have eaten away 4 lakhs. Now this is very important for the society. I think the private media doesn't have space for these things, which is very bad and dangerous. Yeah.
I think it's also important that we understand the role of what an information commissioner does in India, because unfortunately there's very little information even in the public domain. I was trying to Google what is the role of an information commissioner, and there is very little information. So please apprise our viewers, what does your role comprise of? And I guess you are the first journalist to be, I
think so. I have not gone, but as I understand, none with my kind of experience has been an information commissioner earlier. This is what I understand, but I'll check and get back to you on this. You see, this is a whole RTI Act came in 2005. The objective of the act was to make the entire system very transparent. Basically, making legitimate information available to the citizens. This was the act, correct? And so the job of the information commissioner is to make this information available to the common people.
Okay.
So and under that act, every government entity was directed to appoint press information officer, PIO. Information officer had to be appointed in every government entity, including PSUs. And he was supposed to provide the information. He's supposed to provide the information. When he doesn't part with the information, the applicant then comes in appeal to us. This is about the central government and its various entities, And there we have to then adjudge as to whether the PIO should have refused information or not. But then now various challenges have cropped up because the idea is to instill transparency in the system, But over a period of time, lots of challenges have come. One, there are people who misuse this act for their individual benefits. There are people who blackmail, telling somebody that I'll seek this information, which is very uncomfortable for you. You have to gratify. This is what is happening. Another is industries also use it for settling their scores, between themselves. Then there is political activism. So there are challenges before the act. But then on the whole, I think it is a good act. I think because after all, in democracy, what the government is doing, people should know. And there are good activists who want to use it for developmental purposes, for the good of the people. So that's how it is.
I think, Jagannathan sir, when we had a discussion sometime back in one of the conclaves, I clearly remember that you had this thing in your mind that why don't we do RTI based stories in this country? And I throw this question back at you. What is the reason that journalists, especially the print media journalists, are not able to come up with these interesting stories, through RTI activism? It takes very little, actually it takes very little time and resource to get information from the governor and bring out in the public domain. Often through electronic media and through social media, there is a lot of propaganda which is spread either for a particular political party or against a political party. But there is very little veracity with respect to facts. Why do journalists shy away from using RTI as an enabling tool?
Well, one thing is basically journalists have become lazy. Okay, this is the age of Google and internet. So people think that if I can Google something and get something, that's good enough for a story. Whereas with an RTI, you've got to put your thought together. You've got to ask the right questions so that you get the right data. Of course, to some extent, governments have learned how to block uncomfortable data. But more than that, I think when information is sought not necessarily with a political objective, most governments will probably comply unless it's something very politically sensitive or whatever. But journalists have simply become lazy. Let me be very clear about that. Because I think at one time, actually, in order, when we started our careers or even much later, we had to spend a lot of time meeting people and getting information and back checking and all that. Today, people try and the entire story can be done just by Google searches. So people expect that things will come to them and that you don't need to go out and search for the truth. So RTI was meant to help all these people, but they don't even have the patience to spend 2 days filing an RTI request and waiting for a couple of weeks for the reply. So they just don't even know how to ask questions. Most journalists are also not numerate. I mean, they don't know how to adjust a piece of data for population or normalize the data for seasonality, nothing, zero. So that is the problem with them, which is why I say somebody throws a stone at a church and they immediately say Christianity under attack. But they are not able to see that in perspective that this is a random event as opposed to a event that is has overtones of some kind of a bias. So journalists have just become too lazy and they are not numerate anymore. And I find this problem even in foreign publications. They just take some quote from some guy and publish it without checking the data. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, I don't know how they do this, but that's the problem. I think journalism has lost the inbuilt checks that a journalist has reduced.
Jagannathan sir, you are running one of the finest, journalistic. I would actually call it a newspaper, cum journal. Swarajya is literally that. There is information and there are a lot of balanced, rational opinions that you get in that magazine. Where do you think magazines like the Swarajya fail to have a mass appeal? Does it boil down to economics? What really is the problem there?
Yeah, see, the problem with newspaper in economics, and for that matter TV, I mean Udayji talked about TRPs, right? The problem is always one of scale. When you try and scale up a print publication, then your costs go up and your losses go up, and it takes several years before advertising comes in to fill up those costs. So your problem is in the first 3 to 5 years, when you will be just ratcheting up losses if you are trying to grow the circulation. In the case of digital, it's slightly easier, but in the case of digital, the advertising has collapsed because the costs, I mean the rates per million impressions are so low that again, if in TV you have TRPs, here you have clickbait stuff. So you're getting into the same trap, you know. So my point is, like, scaling up is tough. It's a patient business. You need to have investors who have a 5 to 7 to 8 year horizon before they can see the first signs of break even. You can have low level break evens, like say a 3-man outfit can easily say produce high quality stuff, but they will be producing at a low level. That means a Kirana shop will always be viable. A Walmart takes 10 years to be viable because you have to build those supply chains before you actually get the benefits of scale, you know. So it's the same thing. Kirana is very easy. You just have to pay for the rent and you have to make sure that 20 people come to your place every day and then you're done. But you can never scale up. So scaling up is where media fails, and that is where clickbaitism and TRPism all come into play. And people do not have patience. If you see even TV, it's the same problem. Nobody goes out to actually investigate a story. They're sitting in the studio and shouting there. So that cannot work. So I think you need patient capital. That unfortunately is not yet on offer. And all TV media, in fact, whether you think it's good or bad, it's the same problem. You know, even a Rajya Sabha TV basically has just 4 talking heads. You know, they don't actually go. Some maybe they occasionally do a rural story, but the investment required to really do a good job by talking to so many is not there.
Udayji, I would want to take this question to you and tease out further arguments on this. The Indian non-left, I wouldn't really call it a right wing, the Indian non-left spectrum has a wide range of opinions, and people look up to magazines like Swarajya for their daily dose of information, narrative, arguments, and so on and so forth. You have worked in India today, also the print, the print side of it. What explains this? And I would really call it the non-left apathy for rural news. That why have we not able to create mini Swarajyas in so many different ways that we could have done today politically and ideologically? Perhaps the narrative is on our side. Why do we have very few investors investing in genuine publications like Swarajya? What is your take on that?
It shows a certain kind of bankruptcy of thoughts, basically a magazine like Swarajya should have got investors, So I think it shows lack of understanding on the part of the society as a whole. We still have to grow, including the upper reaches, who are able to fund. Even they have not understood the significance of a magazine like Swarajya. Swarajya is, I think it's very balanced also, I mean, you might call it right. It doesn't shy away from criticizing even the right entities when it feels that things are going wrong. So I would wish, but then I think this shows, the mess we have seen over the last 60, 70 years still continues to some extent, I mean, that thought processes, the way they should have developed over the last 60, 70, over the last 10 years after this awareness came, is still not, we see lacking, There is a lack of understanding on the part of the people. And people of the upper, I mean, when it comes to funding investors, we are talking about the business class. I think they have not been able to comprehend the importance of such magazines, Yeah, it's unfortunate.
We have spent some good 15-20 minutes talking about the state of media. Now, as somebody who are in active mentorship positions and as a youngster, I can vouch for so many places where both of you have been involved in literally grooming young minds to think independently, to do their own, do their own work in their own right. I would want to throw this question to both of you. What is your idea of Indian media? Print, electronic, digital, whatever be it. Where do you see from your lens, what is your vision? How should it be?
No,
Right?
you see, I think the way I see it, there is no lack of talent. And I think Jagannath ji would agree with me. There is no lack of talent. And the future is certainly bright. I mean, it might not look very bright as of now, but then awareness is coming. It is basically all about awareness, you know. Awareness is coming. It will enlighten even people of from the upper classes of our society, you know. And so I think I see a bright future for the media and for the country in terms of media.
Jagannathan ji?
Yeah, I think media is going to develop a little differently from what it was in the past. I think you're going to have digital. The advantage of digital is you can achieve great expertise and depth. The reason is, but it will be very narrowly focused in terms of specific areas. Like, for example, you have a technology guy doing a technology portal, or let's say you have a movie guy or a cricket guy doing it. So what will happen is 4 to 8 or 10 people can produce an extraordinarily good technology site or a Bollywood site or a sports site, because it doesn't take, and you'll have real expertise. Unlike newspapers, which have limitations of space, and TV, which has limitations of time, you can't do anything. Of course, you can do live programs on cricket and all that, that's different. But effective time given for expertise is very limited, both in print and in TV. In digital, there is no such constraint, because you can put print, you can put TV, and you can put depth in terms of expertise. So those who are only interested in a 150 word story will get it. Those who want a 1500 word story, they'll get it. Those who want a visual, you get it. So what will happen is the newspaper, I mean the media is going to split into two types. One is the highly expertise driven small things which will be very viable, because in 3-5 years they will be able to find relevant capital and the relevant advertisers, because they are targeting a niche, like say technology or movies or entertainment. But at the other end, there will be large platforms which will actually provide the output of all these individual things. That has not yet developed. We've got, of course, things like YouTube and other things, but we need a genuine platform that is a very broad tent, which actually gives all these expertise a wider range of audience. And it's not just Google links, it is genuinely puts all these experts into that platform. So suppose you create a new platform, that platform has not developed, So like say Uber is a platform, and there are individual contractors who work for it, right? Now, that's what needs to develop in media. Suppose you want to create, let's say, a broad, moderate, right-leaning, or for that matter, left-leaning platform. There is no reason why 50 experts in various things, in politics, in music, in this thing, say that, look, I will look at this vertical and I'll bring out the best in it. But the broader platform is also a brand which actually pumps all these great data and information through it. So that platform has not developed. So it's not Google, it's actually a media platform, but driven by expertise. Each expert is internally viable because it's a niche that supports this thing. And there is a lot of, then you have a publication. The advantage of having a TV-like platform is multiple people come in at various slots, right? That is what you need in the digital space. Currently, it is too narrow. Too many people with too small niches are separately struggling. They need to find a broader platform where everything comes together.
Right. Anything that you're uncomfortable with that's going on in the media today? And I ask this question in the backdrop of what has happened in Maharashtra, how Arnab Goswami has been incarcerated by the state machinery. And most of people out there have openly expressed the disagreement with Arnab on his style of journalism and all of that. But at the end of the day, what happened was really wrong. Where do you see the future of journalists from here? Do you think it's a slippery slope that we have fallen into?
Yeah, the problem is the worst thing that has happened in Arnab's case and in Maharashtra is that the state has been behaving extraordinarily badly, and we should not combine the two things. Whether you like Arnab's programs or not is not the issue here. You've got to defend his right to be what he wants to do. And if you think he said something wrong, sue him. That's not, nobody says that you shouldn't do that. You don't want to do that. Instead of that, you go after him like a ton of bricks. But more than the state has always been predatory in its behavior. Problem is the media. The media is not willing to stand up for freedom. They want only their kind of freedom. If it's not my view, it's the highway. My way or the highway is the way media looks at it. Now, today, if let's say an NDTV is in a problem, I would like to stand up for it because it's a media platform at the end of the day. So if they are being harassed, I would like to support them. But if Arnab is in trouble, if the NDTV will not stand up for them, then what is the use? I mean, then you're just peddling your own narrow ideology and you're keeping quiet when somebody else is being harassed. Tomorrow you are going to be harassed and nobody is going to stand up for you. So I think it's a huge mistake for us to mix up your journalism with the right of the media to free expression of whatever it thinks it needs to do. So that's those two things have to be separate. We can talk about media quality separately. There is a forum for it and we need to do it. But we should not mix up this with that.
Udayji?
I think, of course, I mean, when Jagannathanji says it's predatory, I agree with him. But it's a very special case here. It was becoming into Arnav versus other channels, I mean, the way the whole thing developed, unfortunately, was Arnav versus others. So I don't think it happens every time, I mean, it's a very special situation. And there is a government there which is basically, headed by a person who betrayed the mandate in some sense, So these things don't happen every day, but it's very bad for journalism. And once such predatory behavior is condoned, then it opens new areas in future. That is very dangerous. And I agree with him that there are issues to do with quality of journalism, and I think there all of us have to put our head together and find out a way. But this cannot be the way to silence somebody, So it is a bad development for media, for the society. And what will happen is that it will embolden other governments in future to do the same thing. That is, I am very, scared about as a media person, former media person. Yeah.
Sir, I can't thank both of you enough for taking out time for this conversation.
One more thing I wanted to add. That PIO is Public Information Officer. PIO is not Press Information Officer, is Public Information Officer, which every government under the ITI Act, every government entity which is PSUs, boards, corporations should have. PIO, Public Information Officer.
I really thank you for this conversation because we touched upon certain very interesting aspects that need to be discussed in great detail. I know I have not been able to, have a conversation with both of you on specific issues of the day. But for that, I would request the viewers to go ahead, subscribe to the Swarajya magazine, read up what Uday Mahurkarji and R. Jagannathanji have been writing for all these years. And I'm sure you'll get a sneak peek into these two brilliant minds. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.